Welcome to Conversations with Cox and Kielseth, and to be more specific, that is filmmaker Alex Cox and myself, film curator Pablo Kielseth. Alex will join us by phone from his home in Oregon, while I sneak away from my office to call him from one of the projection booths used by the International Film Series, which has been screening foreign and independent movies at CU Boulder since 1941. We will keep our chats to about 20 minutes as we discuss whatever movie-related topics grab our fancy. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, action. Alejandro, nice to talk with you as always.
Nice to talk to you too. How are you?
Good. In fact, I'm going to be a little bit better. Hold on a second. Now, see if you can guess what's happening here. There's going to be one and what? Wait, what's this? You know what that means? It's a mash.
Oh, you're having a mashup. What are you mashing?
I'm actually mashing up the Sierra Nevada Hazy Little Thing IPA with the Bell's Lighthearted Ale. So it's a nice, refreshing, low-calorie, lower alcohol beverage. And I find it actually, it's just, it adds it's the nice, just perfect middle in-between zone for, a quaffable IPA. So it's good. How about you?
I have a glass of Pearl in front of me from 10 Barrel Brewing, but I'm getting annoyed because they haven't responded to my email. I think they have a pretty funky website. So I did email them and attempted to make contact with the brewer of Pearl to ask her if they would just change the graphic on the can, which isn't too much to ask. But I haven't heard back from them yet.
Well, that's good luck on that endeavor, and I'm sure we'll look forward to updates on that front. But for
over the next 50 podcasts.
Oh, yes, right. Thank you for prodding me on that subject. It was actually Jason who yesterday informed me that, oh, hey, by the way, when you talk to Alex tomorrow, which is right now, you guys are going to be actually on your 50th podcast. So that's what prompted me. And at this point, I want to give a hat tip to Harry Snyder, because a couple of weeks ago, he came by and he passed along some old IFS schedules along with some old schedules from the Art Cinema and Program Council. And it was great fun, especially since I was very actively watching movies during the times of these schedules, and in fact, programming movies for the Program Council. And in fact, also he had schedules for 1991, which would happen to be the 50th anniversary of the International Film Series. So I thought, since you and I are having our 50th podcast, and why not look back to 1991 to look at what the International Film Series at CU Boulder was programming. So I sent you some pictures of the program. Yeah. And I figured, I'd talk a little bit about some of the movies that were shown at the time, and then you could talk about some of the ones you know about. And I do want to say that I am still hopeful that even though right now the International Film Series is not able to convene large amounts of people in our 400-seat auditorium, and we're having virtual screenings through our website, but I'm still hopeful that by fall of 2021, we can return to the big screen in Munzinger and show 35 millimeter films and the latest greatest as well. But one of the things that I couldn't help but glean from looking at this calendar, this fall 1991 International Film Series calendar, was how it's still like the eclectic mix of the series, which, and again, I've tried to, as someone who took over the torch in 97, I've always tried to basically do the same thing, which is basically the eclectic mix that the series has shown. And by eclectic, I mean, looking at this 1991 schedule, it has let's just look at the first week, the very first week. First week, you got a classic. You got The Maltese Falcon from John Huston, 1941. Yeah. Humphrey Bogart, Peter Lorre, based on a Dashiell Hammett book. Then you have You also have an edgy indie at the time, Poison. That was Todd Haynes's big debut right after he'd established his underground hit with Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story. And I was there for that screening, by the way. As a student, I was a student at CU Boulder in 91. And I remember being at that screening of Poison, and it showed a lot of stuff that I wasn't, like it really rocked my world. But then it also has what I would call the accessible art house, right? So in other words, like the movies by foreign or by okay, like Once Around, that's what Lasse Hallström, that was his US debut with Richard Dreyfuss and Holly Hunter. And then Mr. and Mrs. Bridge by James Ivory, that had like Paul Newman and Jonah Woodward. So that's like an accessible art house, but then you dip into documentaries like Berkeley in the 60s, and then you go and here's the nice thing, you stretch over into like a foreign movie like Larks on a String, which is a Czechoslovakian film from 1969 that was banned in Czechoslovakia. And then there's all the experimental avant-garde personal, or as we call it here at Cinema Studies, first-person cinema. And in that particular schedule, you had Mary Menken, Jonas Mekas, Robert Gardner, and our very own Phil Solomon, who sadly just passed away not too long ago.
And a great picture of Phil. I mean, boy, in the program, man, he's like a good-looking devil, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got that smoldering Italian, like looking right into the camera lens thing going on. He
certainly does, and a black beard and very kind of, yeah.
but that's the thing. It's like classics, edgy indies, accessible art house, documentaries, foreign, experimental, avant-garde, first person, whatever you want to call it. And then, so all of that hodgepodge of cinema is wrapped into a ongoing yearly program. And that's certainly the thing that I've tried to, push along in during my tenure as the International Film Series director.
And you've done that. You've done that thing. You've continued that mix of elements.
Yeah, no, described. I mean it's important to me, and I hope that in the fall of 2021 I can come back with a program that basically continues their tradition. But I'm curious, which of the titles on that the program that I sent you popped out at you?
Well, of course, I picked up on Maltese Falcon because it was top of the list, and I just watched it on TV the other night, and it still holds up. It's still a great detective movie, and so that was nice. And to think that would have screened in Munzinger in 35, great. Yep. And then going through the list, I was mystified because there's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1943 by Jacques Tourneur.
Okay, now that's okay.
Wait.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, that's a Don Siegel movie. And then I'm thinking, maybe there's a third invasion, invasion of the Body Snatchers made by Jacques Tourneur before the McCarthy era.
I have to tell you, I'm laughing as I'm talking to you right now because, of course, I mean, I'm a big fan of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and frankly, almost all of the versions that are out there. There's like, and there are so many versions that when I looked at the text for that, I said, holy smokes, is there an Invasion of the Body Snatchers that I've never seen? And oh wait, it's only 60 minutes long. How can that be? And I still cannot find any evidence of that. And so honestly, here's my guess, okay? The person who was programming the International Film Series at that time was Marsha Johnston. And I don't think this was her pick. And pretty sure she doesn't like horror films. And I think that someone basically punted on here and they just dropped in the wrong text. It was like, that's text that was meant for something else. So on the printed calendar...
Some professor was screening Invasion of the Body Snatchers by Don Siegel for a class, and they didn't get it together to give her the right information. And because she was only programming it out of kindness so that the students could see it on the big screen, that makes more sense. Because that's an amazing unknown classic that we'll pass over.
No. I mean, we'll actually get to that. We'll come back to that. And I wish, and since this is a podcast and people can't see the program, they can't see the typographical errors that we're referring to. Actually, in this case, it's just a bit of a blunder in terms of the description for one movie.
It's a misattribution of date and director. Presumably, they were screening Don Siegel's Body Snatchers.
Of course they were. Of course they were. And real quickly, just to set the record straight, and then we'll move on. But I mean, Don Siegel, 1956, and we're talking about the classic with Kevin McCarthy, who's a small town doctor. He notices that his community is being replaced by emotionless alien duplicates. And then the big question for a lot of people, like, wow, was it a metaphor for communism or McCarthyism? Frankly, I mean, it's a Rorschach test. You can, insert what you like. For me, man, given how much vitriol is out in the atmosphere right now, I wouldn't mind having some emotionless alien duplicates versus the overly emotional people who are controlling the streets, unless it's for a good cause. But
but there again, you see, because we have these ideas like emotional people are controlling the streets, and there's all this passion and anger in the world, and blah blah blah, and and fascism is here, and we're oh god. But look at the documentaries that were playing that year in 1991. Blood in the Face, a documentary directed by Anne Bolan, James Ridgway, and Kevin Rafferty. I know James Ridgway as a journalist, and the other two directors I'm not so familiar with, but it's a documentary about the American Nazis, about the KKK. And so, armed, white, crazy guys with guns who want to provoke a violent racist revolution. So it's not like this is new. This has been going on for a long time.
Sure. And actually,
wait, because there's more. We're talking about documentaries. Not only do you have Blood in the Face, a contemporary documentary from 1990 about the American Klan, but there's also Blood of the Condor, a Bolivian documentary about US-funded forcible sterilizations of Bolivian women. And what do we see this very year? A scandal with private prisons where undocumented women are being forcibly sterilized by mad, strange-Lovian American doctors. And the overturning of Elon Musk's Bolivian revolution. Musk having boasted about how he had just cooed that damn place so as to get their lithium, but the Bolivians got their country back last week, so it's terribly prescient, the documentary choices of the IFS. And also it's very poignant how these issues are still with us and how little has changed.
Yeah, I'm looking at the text, and at this point now we can give proper due to proper text in the 1991 fall 50th anniversary IFS schedule, because I look at the quote for the Blood in the Face documentary, and it says, quote, "This film is a shocking display of much that is wrong with our culture and also what is so right, that freedom of speech is given to all. Bring your children and let them see how intolerance can twist a soul beyond all reason, and explain to them that they too have rights. Then, hopefully, they'll exercise their right to help eradicate such hatred." End quote from the New York Daily News. So, to your point,
very fine sentiments. Great sentiments. Yeah.
To your point, it's all very much relevant today. But so I thought I would select.
But I think encouraging in a way, because these problems have always been part of the fabric of the United States internal life and the United States foreign policy. These issues have always been with us, and the struggle continues. But it's not like it's all of a sudden got invented just because Hillary Clinton didn't get elected.
Right. Yeah. No. Excellent point. And the fact is, the struggles will always be there. There's never going to be a time when you just sit back and it's like your particular idea of utopia rolls by, because everyone's got a different idea of what their utopia will be, and right now I feel like we're all just living in each other's dystopia. But
back in 1990 or 1991, Aki Kaurismäki had a vision of paradise, and it was to have a whole bunch of Elvis impersonators from Finland.
Yes.
travel around America in a van with Jim Jarmusch or something like that. Do you remember that movie?
Leningrad Cowboys Go to America.
Go
yes.
America.
Yes. Yes. Great movie.
Yeah, and that was presumably the Boulder premiere of that movie back in 1991, also on the calendar.
Yeah, and it's and the very short, brief quote from that one is, "This comedy is the story of failure, success, and hairstyles from the Finnish point of view." It's also just hilarious. It's and I've always really liked Kaurismäki. Did you ever get a chance to meet him by any chance?
I did. I met him and his brother at another film festival, I think at Rotterdam, and we would. We drink a fair bit in those days, and so and we would drink what gin. You drink Geneva in Holland, and so sitting in a bar with the Kaurismäki brothers, just drinking Geneva and quite drunk, and they're going like, yeah, you should come to our festival in Finland. It's in the middle of a forest, very far from anywhere. And I go, oh yeah, great. Well, what goes on? What happens? Oh, we show some films, drink, and I'm thinking, wow, maybe I won't go to Finland for the film festival because already I'm like gone, but boy, that's the life of the Leningrad Cowboys. I'm surprised that you were not somehow enticed by that offer, because Finland, the forest, and movies and drinking, like, there you go. It's like you got that. Sounds like a good time. I think that they must have hot springs. I think if they're bound to have hot springs. If he mentioned the hot springs, that would have been the decider.
That would have been the thing that got you there. Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Hey, and another film I saw on the list, and this is very interesting because I must confess I've never seen Westfront 1918 by G.W. Pabst. Which is described on the calendar, on the IFS calendar, as a powerful anti-war film made in Germany in 1930. And so I found it today on the internet for free and started watching it.
What's the title of that one?
Westfront 1918. And it's a sort of, I think it's like an All Quiet on the Western Front, but it's French. It's a German film about the French fighting it.
There it is. Yeah, they did that as a double feature with Spanish Earth on November 13th of 1991 under the subject Forgotten Wars. Yeah.
So I want to see it because I love All Quiet on the Western Front, so I thought I'd see the other, the turnaround of it.
Well, you'll have to give us an update about your reaction once you've seen it.
I got to say, it's a wonderful list. You should post it on the site. You should post the 2 pages that we've been talking about because in case anybody wants to refer to them.
And again, Harry Snyder, who I thank for giving me these calendars, was the first to say that, we're actually slowly trying to get our old archives up online. The problem is that they're not, as Harry pointed out to me, he liked the visual aspect of being able to actually see a photograph like of the calendar as opposed to just having the data downloaded. And so that's something
I agree. I think like a JPEG or a PDF of the calendar as it looked is more interesting than just a list.
I agree as well, and that is something that we're going to work on, and I hope to make it happen. So I will say, it's a great list. I was looking, like the ones I wanted to talk about just real quick that jumped out at me. Forest of Bliss by Robert Gardner from 1985. Are you familiar with Robert Gardner, Alex?
No.
I actually had the honor of meeting him in the late 90s when we brought him out again. Super nice guy, world-class anthropologist and documentarian. He died in 2014, but this is the Forest of Bliss from 1985, 1986. I can't quite remember. Anyway, movie begins with a sunrise, ends with a sunset. It's one of those things. There's no dialogue or voiceover. It's just a visual immersion in the daily cadences of a religious city in India. And you witness funeral processions and children as they're doing whatever they're doing and just like, and so on, but like vibrant colors. I actually have a signed photograph from him, which is a black and white still from the film. and it's a really stunning picture, and it's a stunning documentary. So I really highly recommend Forest of Bliss by Robert Gardner to anyone listening who is interested in ethnographic movies and that kind of a thing. And then we jump over to
of Bliss.
Yeah. And then we jump over to, of course, one of the masterpieces of early cinema, La Talente by Jean Vigo from 1934. Story of a newly married couple. They live on a river barge in Paris. This is a movie that routinely makes the short list by film critics who vote for their best films of all time. It's also been restored several times, and it's definitely this is a masterpiece. It's a moving, wonderful, this is pure cinema at its best. And then I wanted to move over to Scarface just because Howard Hawks, 1932. We got Paul Mooney and Boris Karloff, and I have to give a little shout out here to Boris Karloff because he's the reason when I was a child. I mean, I had horrible teeth, and I just absolutely loved the original Frankenstein. And Boris Karloff was kind of my hero. And I really wanted to know more about movies because of Boris Karloff, and the fact that most people know of him because of the monster movies. But you know what? Here he is in one of the best gangster films of its decade for sure, in Scarface. So that's that. I just wanted to give that one a quick plug, and I also
Willem
wanted
Dafoe
to give.
Said
What's
that as well. Willem Dafoe, the actor, said that he had been influenced to become an actor because as a kid he just loved Boris Karloff.
Oh, well, he's certainly been in his share of some very disturbing horror films. So that makes sense. And then the last one, because I actually also programmed this during my tenure as IFS director, but Bernardo Bertolucci's 1900. And it's funny because this is a 1977 film that it was being shown at that time for the 50th anniversary of the IFS in 1991 under this was a restored version with a whole extra hour. And what this meant is that you go in, I know, not your thing, but you'd go in and I saw that what on the calendar says, 6:30 start time only. This was 5 hours and 11 minutes long. And I just thought to myself, that's almost as long as Satan Tango, which we also showed in one day at the IFS. But anyway, so, you got Robert De Niro, Gerard Depardieu, Donald Sutherland, Burt Lancaster, and it's all about fascism. And you'd get 5 hours and 11 minutes of that watching this.
No, it's like there's about like maybe an hour of fascism in it, and there's like about 2 hours of shots of gnarly looking heroic partisans just staring into space, and 3 hours of movie stars snorting cocaine and misbehaving. That's 1900, baby.
Oh, well,
I had to watch it too. I watched the flipping, I don't know if it was 4.5 hours or 5 hours and 10 minutes, but I watched it.
I watched it at the IFS, and although it's been a while, and all I remember is the horrific scene with Donald Sutherland, and as he's committing some atrocities with a small child.
They murder a kid, but I mean, and that's very striking. That's what sticks in your head. But the film is 5 hours and 10 minutes long. And it's deeply boring, deeply decadent. It's exactly what's wrong with that kind of Miramax big American film. I know it wasn't Miramax, but that world, the floating world of great European artists making American film with big movie stars and a bunch of coke and wasting a huge amount of money on a sentimentalized version of the class struggle.
It's definitely not Leningrad Cowboys Go to America for sure. We can
not
say
that's about the class struggle. That's just a wacky film about a bunch of Finns in America with Elvis haircuts.
No, but that's my point. Is that in a way Leningrad Cowboys Go to America is where you really have something that is, uniquely, like it hasn't gone through it hasn't been associated with the studio or big stars or like, you know, that cocaine world that you're talking about.
No, that's true. No, it's just it's its own mad world. You know, it's very pure
powered
in
by
that way.
It's powered by hops for sure, and I'm raising my glass in a toast to you, sir, as we were talking. But yeah, it's a different energy altogether, and I think it's actually coming from a pure place of heart as well.
The other thing is too much money, too much critical success, too many Hollywood parties, too many celebrity actors, you know, and too many minutes on the screen. You know, all those things are vices which a good filmmaker must avoid at all costs.
Yeah. I will not dispute. Although there are some long movies that have I ever asked you how you feel about Tarkovsky, which is that's a completely non-cocaine world? Yeah.
Boring. I mean, I like Solaris. I think Solaris has a couple of extraordinary moments in it, and I really do enjoy it. But Stalker for me was like, oh my God. No, I needed to go bibbidi bim bam boom, you know, like 85 minutes. There can be exceptions.
Lawrence now, hold on a second. Hold on a second.
You know?
I'm going to put you to task here a little bit because I wanted to ask you originally, my first question would have been, what is the longest movie that you do really like? And I guess maybe I should make it even easier by saying, surely there's a spaghetti Western that exceeds the 90-minute, you know, boom, 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 boom time that you want, you know, that's, you know, something that, you like.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, all the spaghetti Westerns sprawl. That's definitely true. I mean, none of them are 90 minutes long. I think that Fistful of Dollars runs from 95 or 100. For a Few Dollars More is nearly 2 hours long. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Once Upon a Time in the West are like 3 hours long. Yeah, no, but that's what they are. That's his self-indulgent style of filmmaking. It's still not 5 hours, though.
No, sure, no.
I mean, 2001 is like about 3 hours long. And our friend John Davison, the producer of Searchers 2.0 and RoboCop and Starship Troopers, he saw the original premiere of 2001 in New York when it was 4 hours long.
Does he remember any of the scenes that were in it that didn't make it to the final cut? And did he tell you what they were?
Not a thing. I have tried my hardest to get it out of him. I've done like, you know, psychotherapy and like drug therapy and alcohol therapy, but I haven't been able to get him to remember what it was that he saw, even though he wrote a letter to the... Legend has it to the New York Times, although he says it was to the Village Voice. He wrote a letter complaining that the film had been cut down after he had seen it. And he was a teenager at that time, you know. I mean, we were all teenagers or adolescents.
That already shows you a certain level of commitment to the film world when you're a teenager and you write a letter to complain about, some differences in memory, and so it's no small surprise that he would go on to become a successful producer, I think,
and a cineast, and have one of the best collections of 16mm films shared with Joe Dante that there is. I think
I would love to share prints with those two guys, but I know how those collectors can be with their prints, and sadly, I shall never see their 16mm titles in my backyard. But that's okay. I've got access to the Cinema Studies collection, my own collection, and I'm
sure they lend you a print too. If you wanted to borrow a print, I'm sure they lend it to you. They're not hard.
Well, I'll count on you to help facilitate maybe a future conversation for that. And that was fun. Thank you for joining me in this. And it's also a good way of kind of nudging me to, put together some colorful programming to accentuate what I hope will be, I'll still be able to hang my hat on for the 80th anniversary if we're allowed to convene together in fall of 2021. But I'm hopeful. So,
I think, I think that's a good, obviously it's going to be at the beginning of next year is going to be as tough.
We're not doing anything.
But in the fall, with a bit of luck, in the fall, things stabilize a bit and you actually can have audiences on seats and staring at the big screen.
That's right.
So
Fingers
fun.
crossed. Fingers crossed for the big screen in 2021.
Yes.
That's going to be my new. That's going to be my new prayer. Fingers crossed for the big screen in 2021.
Good.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you, Alex, for talking with me, and we'll hopefully get together next week and go from there.
It's always a pleasure. I send you lots of love to everybody, and thanks to Jason for making all of this possible.
Always thanks to Jason. Thanks for Jason for editing this stuff. And thanks to anyone listening for listening to us. So,
if anybody listens, thank you too.
Yes. Okay. Take care, Alex.
All right, man. Bye.
All right. Ciao.
And cut. Okay, that's a wrap.
Thanks again for joining Alex Cox and myself today. I'd like to thank Jason Phelps for handling the audio and Ted Thacker for letting us use the intro to his song, The Ballad of Slim Cessna, for the musical cues that bookend these conversations.